Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my friend. I hope you are doing well today. I am doing well. This time of year is not always the easiest for me. I think maybe it's the dark, short days, the cold. I live in the Northeast in the US, and we have really short days at this time of year, and it's cold, and I spend more time inside than I like to, but and I think I find myself in a little bit more slightly bluer places at this time of year, and I've actually learned a lot about how to manage that. And so today I woke up in kind of a funky space, which is sometimes fairly normal at this time of year. And one of the ways I dealt with that today to find my way back into a space that I feel better in is I danced around my living room to some really good music. And it really helped lift me out of a, minor slump. And that's what I want to talk about today. So if you're feeling a little numb or down or blue or depressed, or you feel like you can't really connect to the vibrancy inside you, or love or warmth or affection for your partner, or, you're frazzled or irritable, like we talked about last episode, or you feel overwhelmed a lot. If you don't really have much interest in being around or touching your partner, if you don't feel like you have a lot to say, or when you do say things, they're kind of snippy or maybe a little judgmental or critical, you may be in what I call a Mind Body Heart Slump. Let me try that again. A Mind Body Heart Slump, or MBHS. I made this up. But basically, a Mind Body Heart Slump is when you've been chronically overstimulated or stressed, right? Which really tends to happen somewhat easily for highly sensitive people living in our pretty type A society. All right. Now, I like to say we really can't talk about relationships without talking about stress or chronic overstimulation, right? Really none of us, highly sensitive people and non-highly sensitive people alike, really can't have great love and connection and, just a thriving relationship or marriage when we're chronically stressed, right? And if you're living a normal kind of type of modern life, like most of us are, you probably do feel chronically stressed. Unless you found some good ways to deal with that. If so, kudos to you. That's wonderful. But so I want to offer you a couple metaphors today to help you kind of understand what's going on. If you related to any of those things I was just talking about what the experience of being in a mind-body-heart slump is like, or feeling chronically stressed. Like I said, it might not actually feel like you're chronically stressed. It might kind of have gone beyond that into like that numbness feeling or the down feeling, right? So there's a lot of different ways that chronic stress can show up. And again, I want to offer you a couple metaphors today to sort of explain what's going on for us when this is happening, and to offer you some solutions. And if you've been following me in one way or another for a while, you'll know I'm sort of famous for my wonky metaphors. I definitely have a weird way with metaphors. I hope that you find them enjoyable. They kind of make me laugh. So today I'm going to offer you one of those, which is, imagine that your body, your mind, body, heart, your human system, yourself, is a balloon. And I want to imagine that you're kind of like a balloon, like with pretty thick skin, like maybe like the kind of balloon material that a hot air balloon is made of. And like normally, like a normal healthy system, normal healthy you would be just like this big balloon with this thick skin that's pretty buoyant and can float around, right? All right. Now, let's also imagine that different balls, like a heavy balls, like a bocce ball or a boule ball, or a pool ball, something that's kind of weighted, or like a bowling ball. Like imagine those are actually what represents stress in our life. And there are different sizes, right, for different stressors. So every time you as this balloon perceive something in a stressful way, it's like adding one of those balls to your system. Like the baby crying half the night, add a medium-sized ball to your balloon, right? Like coronavirus rampant in your neighborhood and you're feeling nervous, of course, right? Like add a big bowling ball to your system, right? Have a big to-do list, add another ball to your system, and so on and so forth, right? And, we tend to like be adding balls to our system left and right? There's so much in our modern lives and the way that we sort of relate to our modern lives that add these stress balls to our balloon system, right? And you can imagine that like filling up a big balloon with these heavy balls will make its natural buoyancy disappear, right? It will make it heavy. It will tax that balloon and even like make it come all the way down to the ground and crash, right? Obviously, it's not going to be its buoyant self when it's full of bowling balls. Okay, right? So that's kind of what happens inside of us as we navigate this stressful world and we relate to it sort of stressfully. Another way to think about this also is that it's kind of like living in our modern world. Most of us have gotten used to, we take the super highway into stress land, right? Like we've made that the quick pathway inside of ourselves so that it's very easy to feel stress. We've kind of built these super highways straight towards stress land by allowing all the stress into our lives, but it really, like, by not having known how to not have so much stress so chronically, right? So now most of us, so many of us, have what we would call an overactive nervous system, an overactive sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight part of our nervous system, and sometimes also an overactive parasympathetic nervous system, like the freeze part of our system. All right. Another way of putting this is we oftentimes have in our modern world the gas on chronically and the brake on chronically at the same time. Okay. So many of us feel kind of revved up and worn down at the same time, right? This kind of, it's like us, the nervous system gone a little haywire, right? And it causes irritability, it causes low sex drive, it really like turns on the sex brake, like the desire for sex that like gets turned on, and the pleasure that we experience in it, that gets turned down. Or we can kind of just go into this numb place or feel kind of shut down. We can feel quick to kind of pick up arms, like go to war, or like, make snarky comments or get really defensive. Or we can take things really personally from this place. In other words, like many of our relationship issues come out when we're chronically stressed, right? When we have that nervous system overload going on. One of the things that happens is what I call flaw sight. I talked about this in episode 6, I think, where we start to notice more of what's going wrong. Like, it activates our lizard brain, our primal brain. So we might find ourselves, in those more kind of negative places, seeing more negative things and pointing them out, or maybe kind of getting a little control-y. I know that was certainly one of my lizard behaviors when I'm super overstimulated, is like, I might get a little more bossy, like in not such a great way, right? Or a little bit more judgy. Or like last week we talked about feeling way more annoyed, right? When our nervous system is really run down or charged up, or that gas and the brake are really on. Okay. So, and again, I would call this a mind body heart slump, because it's affecting our bodies. We're usually like either overcharged up or sort of depleted energy wise. It's affecting our mind, like I just talked about. Like, we tend to go into more negative spaces and feel more negatively. And again, that's that heart thing. Like, we feel removed from our heart, not connected to the love and care and warmth for people around us. Yeah, so it's kind of a slump of all those layers of ourselves, mind, body, and heart. And it's really a normal response to a pretty crazy world, right? So I want you to know that if you've experienced this, if you are experiencing this, it's normal in our world right now, but it's not necessarily healthy, and it doesn't need to stay this way. So a feeling of calm, like a calm nervous system, calmness in our hearts, like calm in our minds, like a feeling of calm is really a cornerstone of a healthy relationship, right? When we have more space in our balloon, right? When our balloon isn't weighted down with all these stress balls, we actually have access to our hearts, to our emotional intelligence, to our compassion and our understanding, and that part of us that can creatively solve for problems or navigate conflict so much easier, right? In short, we really have access to all the best gifts of our sensitivity, all the best gifts of just who we are. Like, another way to put that is to our essential selves, or who we really are under all that stress, right? So having a balanced nervous system, having what we call a regulated nervous system, having access to this calm is so important for our well-being and for our relationships' well-being, right? Especially for us HSPs. So there's this thing called differential susceptibility. It's a term that it's really applicable for us highly sensitive people. So the good news about this is that as HSPs, we actually respond more quickly to good things, right? Like to comforting things, to stress reduction techniques, for example. Like, we're able to actually get back to that healthier place quicker with less work or less positive input, if this makes sense, because we're sensitive, right? So that means we're sensitive to healing effects, more sensitive than highly sensitive people. Pretty cool. But, and you might be much more used to this, we're also more susceptible to the quote unquote bad, right? We're generally just more susceptible. Right? Because we're more sensitive, right? So we also respond more quickly to bad stuff, or more poorly, like more intensely, right? We get overstimulated seemingly easier because we're taking in more in general, which, it really means we take in more of everything, right? We take in more of the good, we take in more of the bad. So if we're taking in more of those stress balls, right, our system gets more quickly burdened just because we're taking more of them in, right? And then once we've kind of, grown those super highways that I was talking about earlier, like super highways to stressed outness, it's easier and easier to get stressed out too, right? So the solution is, for one, to lean on our differential susceptibility, meaning be able to add more good to our system, more stress relieving stuff to our system. And another way to say that is our work is to kind of reduce or starve those nervous system pathways that I was talking about, like shrink them so that instead of them being a super highway, they become more like a little dirt road, right? And then bulk up the rest digest response, the calm pathways inside of us, right? The calm circuits in our nervous system. In other words, like the circuits that tell our body, mind, heart that everything is okay, all is well. Yeah? Right? And another way to say this is to move those balls out of our balloon, to get those stress balls out of our balloon, to create more space for, who we really are, like that calm, centered self to exist, right? So there are kind of two wings of this. And I like to think about them as like there's things we can do when our stress system is super activated, like in the heat of the moment. And there's also, and more importantly, and what we're going to talk more about today, is what we can do ongoingly, like on a regular basis. So you might kind of think about, here's another metaphor for you that might resonate a little bit better. If our system, if who we are, our body and mind and heart are like a garden, right? We want, and we're really like the soil of everything that happens in our lives. Like the fruits are all the things that happens in our life, including like our career and our friendships and our creativity and our relationships, right? Our marriage. We need to make sure that our soil is really healthy, right? Our soil is so important. And, when, for example, like in our garden, if like a plant is growing and there's a bug infestation on it, of course we want to deal with the bugs, right? So that's like a heat of the moment issue, sort of an emergency, acute issue. But that plant's going to be healthier and be less susceptible to damage if it's got really healthy soil with lots of nutrients in it. It's been, it's thriving in that soil, right? So we really want to make sure our soil is healthy and nourished so that we can grow the beautiful things that we want in our lives, but also so that when, the inevitable things happen, like a pandemic is in our world, we actually have the resilience and the strength inside of our systems to be able to handle that much easier, right? Yeah. So I like to also think about this as like the difference between preventative medicine and emergency medicine, right? When we have an acute situation, obviously we want to deal with that. And there's things that we can do, of course, when like in a relationship, we have a big fight or some big stressor. Of course, there's things we can do to help ourselves with that and help us navigate that and help us get our systems back to a calmer place again. But today, and very importantly, is to kind of do the preventative medicine or just keep our bodies and minds super healthy, right? As a basis, as a baseline. Like that's just so important for everything in our lives, right? It's kind of like tending your soil in your garden ongoingly as part of your daily life regularly will decrease in the stress load in your system, right? Create more space for calm and care and enjoyment of your life, and more resilience for the hard stuff, right? All right. So what I'm going to offer right now is a bunch of ways for you to tend your soil so that it's healthy and resilient, so that you are healthy and resilient. I like to divide this into two categories, okay, which is rest and play. So the invitation to you is to, if you aren't already, and some of you totally may be on board with this and already doing this a lot in your life, if you find yourself kind of out of whack and more irritable and all of in a mind body heart slump, even though you're doing some of these things, I invite you to amp that up a little bit. And those of you who don't incorporate lots of rest and play into your life, or we might even just call it self-care, right? This is a call to you. This is a huge invitation to start there. It will have such positive ramifications on not only your love life, your marriage, but all your relationships, your efficacy at work, your health. Like, this is so important. All right. So, and it's fun because it's like rest and play, right? So there's all sorts of ways that you can bring more rest and more play into your life. And I really invite you to find the ways that you love the most, that bring you the most enjoyment, that you enjoy, right? I'm going to give you some ideas. There's some of the ways that I like, and some of my clients have really enjoyed bringing those things into their lives. So like I said earlier, dance. This is what I would consider under the headline of play. Dancing, like living room dancing when no one's watching, just free dancing in your living room with some really good music on. That is really fun for me. And a lot of people get a lot out of that. It brings a lot of stress reduction, but it's also really fun. Okay. Going for a long walk or a hike in the woods or park. For some of us, that feels like play. Of course, playing a board game, like one of my favorite activities is game night with my family. Super fun. Or get creative in a way that appeals to you. A lot of highly sensitive people are very creative people. So play some music, draw or paint, like collage, write poetry. And my advice here is don't give yourself some standard you have to reach. Do it for fun. Do it for the enjoyment of it. Watch a funny movie, right? That's a form of play. Redecorate a room in your house. Have a good connecting talk with a friend. Okay, these are all ways that you can play. Add some more play to your life. Okay, and under the category of rest, this is what I mean by rest. These are some options. Meditation. Some of you may have incorporated meditation into your life for, longer periods of time or shorter periods of time. There's all kinds of meditation out there. Even just a few minutes at a time is powerful. Okay. So explore that if you'd like, or yoga nidra. Some of you, I've mentioned this before, one of my favorite go-to deep rest activities. Love it. All kinds of guided yoga nidras out there. Another really sort of simple one is going to your bedroom or lie down on the couch or wherever and put an eye pillow over your eyes. And the point is not to block out the light as much as to put some weight on your forehead or over your eyes. Like there's a way in which that actually activates the ventral vagus nerve. And I'm not going to go into why that helps, but it totally turns on the calming part of your nervous system. Super good. Even for 5 minutes, good thing to do. I highly recommend, as another activity, deep breathing. There's all kinds of different deep breathing out there, but there's so much scientific evidence to support how it regulates your nervous system, gets that, the rest digest, the calming part of your nervous system, the part that we want to be bulking up and building in our lives, strengthening, it gets that going and it strengthens that muscle. It's like a muscle, not really a muscle, but metaphorically. And I would love to offer you a practice that I created. It's called Uplift Breath and Heart Coherence. It's an audio. It's an 11-minute audio. I just want to give it to you for free. It's a beautiful deep breathing practice, but it's got a lot more going on for it that I'm not going to really explain, other than it's this lovely, calming, heart connecting, really great stress reduction practice, and I am just going to give it to you for free. I will put the link to that in the show notes, so please go grab that. It's my pleasure to offer that to you. And one last idea for rest. It's not exactly rest, and you could call this play too, I guess, but it's journaling. Some of us, like, that's such a beautiful stress release, such a beautiful way to connect to ourselves and just calm our systems. So those are just some ideas of hundreds, thousands of different ideas for ways that you can kind of turn on that calming part of your system way more often and let those heavy balls of stress exit the balloon of yourself. Right? So anything that brings you calm or brings you pleasure, except for like overeating and like over binging on TV or like drinking a lot or drugs, like that's not what I'm talking about. It's a totally separate thing. So I'm talking about like really healthy things that actually naturally bring your nervous system, your stress system into balance, into regulation, right? And so yeah, find your own. One thing that I've noticed is that we don't always recognize that we're in a mind-body-heart slump until we do something to shift ourselves out of it. And then we suddenly feel alive or like ourselves again, right? And that might be because if this happens for you, like if you're like, I don't know if I'm in a mind-body-heart slump, like just try some of these activities, add a little bit more into your day or your week, like a kind of more concentrated dose, and then notice the effect. Because I think so many of us have gotten used to living chronically in a mind-body-heart slump. So suddenly when we've done something to help shift us out of it, it's like, oh yeah, this is who I am. This is how I should feel, right? My newer clients who I always kind of invite people to integrate more of this into their lives as they start to work with me. So my clients who take this more seriously, they're often really wowed by how much better they feel after, simply carving out some time to add more play or rest to their days. Doing these things will really calm you, will really re-energize you. So you really do feel way more vibrant again. Like that balloon that you are is no longer filled with heavy balls, but instead is spacious and light and can even kind of float around effortlessly. Think about it as building the muscles, building access, building a new highway inside of yourself to calm and care, right? To being able to access the calm parts of you, the caring parts of you, right? From which more love springs, right? Which leads to, this is really interesting, the more love, the more experiences of connection and love that you have in your life, it actually builds more of that common care into your body, right? Builds more love, builds more safety, builds more care. Like it's just one of those positive snowball effects for not just your own physical and emotional well-being, but the well-being of your loved ones and your relationships with them. Because it really is from there, from this place, that you can have more laughter with the people in your life. You can have, you have access to that solution part of your brain, so you can solve problems so much easier. You can have much better and enjoyable sex. You can have just a lighter, like a lighter, happier atmosphere in your home. You can be more attuned and subtly aware of your partner. You can know like just what to say, right? Like it'll really call on your sensitive spidey sense, your sensitive superpowers when you're in this place. And you'll really able to feel and see all the good stuff that you do have going on in this life of yours. Now, really important kind of last part of this is, I know I talked a lot about how the things that happen outside of us in our lives, like the baby keeping us awake all night, or coronavirus, all these stressors, quote unquote, out in the world, like that they really like add those balls, that stress to our system, right? And help create that slump. But I really want you to understand this is so important, and it's overlooked most of the time, that, our overstimulation, our slump doesn't just come from those things outside of us, like all the loud noise around us or other people's demands, right? Or our boss's requests or our to-do list, right? Like the outer world ultimately isn't really responsible for your slump, for your stress, right? A mind-body-heart slump actually comes so much from how we're thinking about and relating to those things outside of us, right? It comes so much from our mindset. In other words, our thinking, our perception is a huge culprit of a mind-body-heart slump, right? Like when you're thinking that you need to do it all, or you need to meet other people's expectations, or make sure your partner's never upset with you, or make sure the house is always in perfect order. I hear that one a lot. When you think that like taking time for yourself to care for yourself will actually negatively impact other people, and you therefore don't take care of yourself, or you feel guilty when you are taking care of yourself, like that's not very useful, right? Can you see how that might prevent you from taking great care of yourself, or doing some of these things, or having these play or rest activities actually be effective, right? Or like if you're focusing on all that's missing from your life and your marriage and really sort of suffering around that, like that is adding stress to your system. That is adding balls to your system, your balloon, right? Or when you're believing you don't have time to care for your sensitive system, right? All of this stuff will send your system into fight or flight, into overload, and really flood your mind and your body and your heart with stress hormones, and really take you far away from that calm place, far away from who you are, far away from the connection to your heart and all the good stuff that's there available. So I don't want you to think that you're to blame for having a mind-body-heart slump or being chronically stressed. I think it's kind of like something we're all navigating, but you really are responsible for finding your way back to the centeredness, to the aliveness, to the love on the other side of that slump, right? So some of the most important work that I do with my clients is identifying and dissolving the thinking, the perceptions, right, that leads them into and keeps them in the slumps, right? So that they can get out of that slump and build like that healthy soil in their garden, right? From which the fruits of their garden, right? The flowers, the vegetables, like their relationships, for example, their careers, from which, those things can thrive, right? So know that I'm here if you ever want to reach out and talk about coaching around all this. But I also want to offer that today, right now, you can decide to kind of ignore or to just like notice when you have that kind of thinking in your head that tells you should be doing other things. Like there's probably so many thoughts going through your mind that are keeping you from actually doing some of these activities that are going to nurture your soil, right? And you can actually gently guide yourself out of the slump by choosing, by making the choice to not really listen to that part of your thinking as much as you might normally, and choose to do something decompressing, restful, or playful, right? Something you enjoy. So go do it, okay? And make it a regular part of your life. This is an ongoing thing. It's a lifestyle, especially for us highly sensitives, right? This is one of the things that is most talked about when highly sensitive people go looking for some support or learn about themselves, is like, take care of your nervous system, right? So important. So when you do this kind of thing regularly for yourself and you teach your mind to stop leading you into the slumps, stop preventing you from taking such good care of yourself, it will bring you back to yourself. It will bring you back to your heart. It will bring you back to your vitality. It'll bring you back to feeling like you are yourself again, right? And it will bring you back to those you love and perhaps create, more connection, well-being, and love than ever before in your marriage. All right. Take this out into your life and try it on. Like, try exploring it, like, kind of seriously for 2 or 3 weeks or in the next month, and just notice how it affects everything in your life for the better. All right. Take good care. And remember, I'm offering you that guided audio. Such a yummy practice. I use it regularly. Go grab that by clicking the show notes link. And I hope you enjoy. And be oh so well.